Hey guys, it's your humble host, or Q if you prefer, so I'm back with another video. I am doing another interview with Breton. He's from Save Miles Gortz. For those of you who've been kind of following the Save James stuff and even his page, he has a hearing coming up on July 7th. So there's been quite a few updates. I do apologize, I've kind of fallen behind with this one, so forgive me for that one, but I have Breton here, and we're going to kind of talk about what's going on and pretty much what the goal of this hearing is. So anyway, how are you doing, Breton?
Oh, I'm doing good. It's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's nice to hear from you. So from what I understand, because maybe you've talked a little bit, as you have a hearing coming up, and from what I understand, Sarah Gortz is trying to get full custody of Miles Gortz again?
Yeah, so I can tell you what's happening on this next hearing is we have still this stalemate where, because I've had some success in getting the people who are dealing, that Sarah empowers to deal with my son, to start considering getting my approval or consent for it, what we have at the moment is kind of a stalemate where Sarah wants to take Miles into some treatment programs, which I'm actually not against if it's a good one and it's the right one. But we have this insurmountable problem of Sarah is insisting that anybody that interacts with my son calls him Miley, calls him a she, and calls him a them and a there and a they. And I, of course, have the opposite stance, and if any, it won't. And I've actually shut down a couple of potential treatment programs because they insisted on doing that. So it's really coming to a head once again. Every time we go back to court, it's just to remind anybody that's been following that the last time the judge basically said, I'm going to give you guys about 6 months to work this out on your own, and that was probably his way of just not really knowing what to do, which in some ways is good because he's not being an activist judge. But
right,
this time when we come, back, we're not have worked it out amongst ourselves because there really is no way to do so. And so what's going to unfortunately happen, and I'm not looking forward to this at all, and I'm actually looking for ways to kind of, toward it, is the judge is going to do basically what the only thing a judge can do, which is to say, well, I really can't make a judgment like this on my own. I'm going to need to get expert testimonies and bring in people who know more about the subject than I do. And so that's where all the money starts going. I mean, probably, that's what's happened with Jeff, in his case, when you start to have to bring in court-appointed experts who qualify to be, considered expert testimony in a case like this. They're extremely expensive. They almost can just charge whatever they want because you don't really have a choice. And I, of course, can't afford that. I don't think Sarah can afford it, but she seems to continue to be able to do so. And so that's where it's probably going to end up on the 7th, is we're going to have this stalemate still. I do think that Sarah is trying to kind of do a Hail Mary of just getting full legal custody, which from her perspective would solve the problem, and could take me out of the equation. But my attorney doesn't think that's, it's possible that they would grant that to her, but it's not very likely, because you think there would, have to be some good circumstances in her favor for that. But, stranger things have happened. So, and we're kind of living in a lawless time where they don't exactly follow any rules. So I'm hoping and praying that doesn't happen.
Well, just to give a refresher for the audience, so a couple things, because there's going to be a playlist in the description. It's also going to show up at the end card of this video, you guys. So just to kind of give a refresher, Miles was put on a couple different antipsychotics. I assume that you have the same judge, the judge that gave you joint conservatorship, correct? Or did you change judges?
So the judge that was originally over our case did retire, and we did get a replacement or a different judge who, in my opinion, is a little more moderate. The first judge was, I guess what you would call an activist judge, definitely had his mind made up and it was going to be on Sarah's side. But we do have one that seems to be at least trying to like be fair and understand the issues, at least so far.
So, yeah, no, that is good. And also just another kind of brief refresher for you guys. Miles is autistic, and I believe you said that he has, was it ADHD, if I remember correctly? It's been a while, and there's been a lot of information that's come through. But do I have that correct, ADHD?
Yes, yeah. So my son, just to refresh everybody, my son's 11, and he's been diagnosed with autism since he was 4. And he is over-medicated. He's on ADHD medication. He's on Wellbutrin. He's got massive weight gain. He's basically in the top percentile of obesity for children his age. I mean, he's a total mess.
So, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, it really comes down to this, is that I've been saying it for a while now that my son could benefit from the right kind of therapy. His issues are have to do with autism, and a lot of manifestations of that, but there's also a lot of other issues there too.
Right.
But unfortunately, this is why it's why our case is so screwed up and unique, is that Sarah drank the Kool-Aid. She belongs to the cult. She believes that Miles's primary problem is he has gender dysphoria. And until the world treats him as such, and then we allow him to take hormones or do chop up his body or allow people to do that, he's going to have these manifestations. So in her, from his mother's perspective, his primary problem is gender dysphoria, and everything else kind of comes from that. Of course, I know that's ridiculous. I mean, any sane person knows that's ridiculous. What they're calling gender dysphoria is just another delusion on par with a lot of other ones that he has, like thinking he's going to be immortal and he's going to take a potion to never age and things like that. So the problem really is Sarah, and she's just coming from this place of delusion also, and she's not allowing us to get the help and the treatment that my son needs. And I would like to think that a judge in a court would recognize that, but it's a lot harder than it appears.
And it is, and just to bring up, and I'm not trying to use the save James to overtake yours, but just to serve it as an example, because I've brought this up in my channel and I've spoken to people multiple times, you do have activist judges, and depending on who's in their pocket, where their money's coming from, their campaign, and see how long they can hold on to that gavel, they're going to make decisions that's going to satisfy certain people. We saw this with Judge Kim Cooks of 255 Court in Dallas, Texas, the original judge over Jeff Younger's case. And in a way, just looking out of the court documents, she pretty much allowed Anne to do whatever she wanted, and so did Al Breton, because she was a pediatrician, and Anne has ties to the big pharma of LGBT. I mean, this was proven a while back, and this is how it is with a lot of these cases. A lot of these judges will make certain rulings that will keep them on the bench because they got higher people that can keep them there.
Yeah, I believe that. It's deep corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that no one's immune to it. Judges all the way down to just anybody on the street. There are some people who live in that, I'll just call it the other world, where they think that there's such a thing as trans children, and that man can be a woman and a woman can be a man, and they live in that world. And then there's us that know that's ridiculous and it's delusional and it's destructive and dangerous. And it's bad enough when we have a society that's split down the middle like that. But when that I got this analogy from Jeff not too long ago, and it's a good one. Is when the fault line goes through a family, and there's one parent in the cult and the other one isn't. That's that's the hardest one. I never would have imagined something more difficult to try to take on.
It's so, like I said, and I can't reiterate this enough, is when I first started reading about what was going on with Jeff's case, your case, I thought it was clickbait because the right had started to put out a bunch of stuff. I'm like, okay, I don't care, just shut up. And I couldn't believe what was going on until I saw the court documents and the pictures and the other stuff. I'm like, are you kidding? This is actually happening? Because I heard a little bit about what they were doing in Canada and how certain places were becoming just more, I don't even want to use the word liberal, because even traditional liberals go, we're not for that. You guys are freaking nuts. I guess we're considered conservatives now. I actually heard that on someone's talk show the other day. But they've lost their minds. And something I'm starting to pick up too, because with it being Pride Month and all the freaking crazies came out, I'm starting to see more and more, because you even saw this in the Compassion Coalition. I don't know if you saw this post, but I actually got into an argument with someone. They want to normalize men being more feminine, homosexuality, and this is where it starts. See, this is, and I'm not trying to rant because I think I've said this multiple times on my channel before, is a lot of people made fun of the Christians and the conservatives that were saying, if you open the door to gay marriage, you're going to open the door to pedophilia, bestiality, all this other stuff. Everybody laughed at them. Look at what we're dealing with. There is no, oh, hey, we're just going to stop here. No. If you actually look at the foundations of queer theory, it is wrapped in pedophilia. And it's also a breakdown of the nuclear family. Like, there is no way of getting around that.
Yeah, it's cultural Marxism, which is one of their planks.
Yeah.
They can't get what they want without breaking down the family first. It's...
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a slippery slope. I didn't pay attention to this subject much until it came into my life, as it has. And I do remember, back not too long ago when that issue was, really a hot button issue in society, and I never thought much of it too. I guess I was just one of those normies, but now in hindsight and retrospect, I can see exactly where it went. It just opened the door, a floodgate.
So, yeah, no, and, like, for me, because, like, I grew up Christian, Pentecostal, and so I do believe what the Bible says, and I was, like, when people were talking about it, I'm like, okay, I was at that point, like, live and let live, just we're a melting pot, not everybody follows God's laws, and the Bible says not to force your religion on other people, or rather your faith, just move on. So I was at that point, but when I started to see more and more stuff kind of crop up, and Save James really just put the gas pedal down and went, you know what, nope, full stop, we're just going to go full steam ahead, and I have no tolerance for this crap whatsoever anymore. I don't care. Just no, done. So done.
Abusing our children. We have to defend our children. I mean, they're giving us no choice.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to defend our children. It's just as simple as that.
Right, and something I do want to bring up, because it going back to breaking down the family, is in the video, the podcast that you and Jeff did, you guys had mentioned breaking down the old guard. And so that is very much true, because you have a lot of the older generations, one that haven't been swept up and freaking just somehow brainwashed, which is really scary when it happens to the older generations. When they can't identify what's going on. Anyway, but you do have a lot of the older generations that's like, just full stop, this is not how stuff was, this is not how stuff is going to be, you're gonna have to literally kill me first before this crap happens. And you do have more and more people rising up, but again, the old guard is still in place. You still have, thankfully, many people going, no, you're not touching my child, no, it's husband and wife, no, you're gonna keep away from my kid, no, you're not allowed to be around my kid, pretending to be a woman. The old guard is still there, and they're very much trying to destroy it, and I don't think they're going to be able to destroy it all the way, so they're going to try to push by other means.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's why we have a window of time here. I mean, if people that have one foot in kind of the old, more sane culture, just pass by natural means, by time, and then what's left is the people that, the young people that they've been able to brainwash, along with all the other mechanisms of, social engineering and social control, we could lose this battle. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, my friend Brandon Showalter, says it all the time is, eventually God's not going to tolerate this. You start to mess with the children, and that's when he comes back and he intervenes. And so that's ultimately what I think will happen. But we need that too, because in a lot of ways they have us outgunned. They own the media, they own the education system, the institutions are corrupted, they have all the power structures within the government. So we're going to need a miracle here, but we're just going to keep fighting it.
Yeah, and like a couple things. So, because, and like Steven Crowder was bringing this up, and I need to watch this video because he has a video out called Christians Turn the Other Cheek Wrong. Because they're like, oh, well, someone hits you, just slap and turn your cheek and let them do it to the other cheek. And I don't think that's accurate. I've yet to see this video, but I think Christians are taught in many churches not to stand up. And this is something else too, because I can't remember, it was someone who I would still call a pastor. Like, I've left the church because it's just apostate and they don't know how to deal with certain stuff. Case in point with what's going on now. And they refused to stand. Anyway, there was a pastor that I still call a pastor. I won't name him because I don't want... Yeah, anyway. So he was talking about how people, like, if you feel uncomfortable in your spirit or whatnot, a lot of people go, oh, well, I'm not supposed to do this because it makes me feel uncomfortable. And they don't do it. And I think that's kind of what's happened with the church, is taking a stand. When it comes to this stuff, you do put yourself at risk. You put your family at risk. You put your name, your brand, whatever you're attached to is at risk. And a lot of churches refuse to do that because it's uncomfortable. And
they put themselves at risk of like losing their tax exemption status, and
which I think is so stupid. Get rid of it anyway. You guys are sucking off of the damn resources of the city. I found that to be so damn stupid because I'm sorry, I'm not trying to like go off, but I've heard this come up so many times. Oh, well, we're tax exempt, we're religious. No, excuse my language, but fuck your tax exemption. You shouldn't even have it, like, because here's the thing, and I know I've been to quite a few for-profit churches to where they will redecorate their exterior or their interior for whatever reason. They didn't need to do it. There are such things as for-profit churches. I'm like, you guys should be paying taxes anyway. I don't see why you guys are tax exempt. I've always felt the church should pay taxes, and the stuff that when they do missionary trips and when they actually do charities, don't tax the actual money that goes towards those things. But when it comes to paying the building for God only knows how much electricity or how much freaking water you're going through. No, like, what the hell? I never got that. I don't even know where or how that crap even started. So there's that bullshit. And you're right. There's a lot of churches that won't stand up because they don't want to lose their tax exemption. And another thing too is there's a lot of stuff they don't know how to handle, and this kind of ties into what me and my dad were talking about, because, and I'll tell you this here, and I'll just tell everybody. I grew up Pentecostal Christian. My dad was a reverend, still very much a godly man, and he feels like something is about ready to come about, and I heard it on Twitter, too, before my Twitter got nuked, that God's getting ready to do something. But we were talking about some of this trans stuff because I keep them updated with Save James and a little bit of your stuff, is that when it comes to certain things, again, the church not knowing how to handle stuff like sexual abuse. And I'm not trying to take it there, but this ties into that. They don't know how to handle sexual abuse. So when you have, that's just one example. So when you have this trans stuff come on, it is another poison that makes the original poison 10 times worse. And because you already have people who don't know how to handle the first thing, they're not going to know how to handle this bigger thing.
Yeah.
And so, and I was telling this to someone else too. Sorry, I'm going off on a rant.
It's okay.
It's been a while, but what a lot of people fail to realize, like a lot of conservatives, anyone who calls themselves Christians, followers of God, if you can't take a stand for this stuff now, like against this stuff, you're not going to be able to do so later when it gets really bad. Like I was telling that to a certain individual just the other day, because they're dealing with something similar, and it just, it's going to get scary. But if you can't stand right now and risk to lose everything and put your name out there and stand by what you talk about, you're not going to be able to do it later.
Yeah, we have to make this stand, and it does seem like the churches are failing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not all of them. There are people that are speaking out on this issue, and other issues that are probably as important. I think this is probably the most important. This stuff just pops up all the time. I'll just quickly tell you this. I have a friend who sailed his sailboat from Washington State up to Alaska, the inner passage. And, he called me a couple days ago, and he's telling me about the trip, and he's in Ketchikan, and he, was meeting some people, and he's heard my story, from me a few times. I really don't get into it too much with him, but he says, I met this guy at the dock yesterday, and I started to notice some things. Like he's young, he's about 25 years old, and
Mm-hmm.
he has glitter on his face, and he had a little bit of makeup on, and he was working on his motorcycle, and I thought, this is kind of odd. And I started talking to him, and he introduced himself as Naomi, and it's like, oh, that's an interesting name for a guy. And then, sure enough, this young man said, well, when I get back, from Alaska on my little adventure here, I'm going to go on hormones, and I'm changing my name, and and it's like, this stuff is everywhere. It seems to just be proliferating through an entire generation of young people, and it's just way more common than I think anybody knows.
Well, yeah, and as I had mentioned earlier, they're trying to normalize it, and it starts out, and here's the thing, because people don't want to acknowledge this. It starts out with guys wearing dresses like you have drag queen story hour, but you know what they've been doing with drag queen story hour? You know who's been flocking to those? Pedophiles. They have busted several pedophiles. There's also been news articles of how they're using drag queen story hour to confuse kids. Like, I'll give an example, and I can't remember what article I read this in or how long ago it was, but they were doing, for some reason, a puberty class using drag queens. Like, how effed up is that? Anyway, so one of the drag queens asked, like, what does a girl have? And all the students answered correctly, a vagina. What does a boy have? A penis. And they were ignored. Like, they're doing this on purpose. They're trying to normalize one behavior so they can begin to normalize others. And it's just like, they have all these kids, all these mentally vulnerable people just bleeding this. Like, I'm not gonna, like, this has to do with YouTube drama and whatever, but I was looking in the comment sections of one of these videos I just watched, and I'm watching, like, all these people, we need to normalize this. It should be normal, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, like, what world am I living in? Like, oh my God.
They talk about tolerance. Well, I mean, we've been way too tolerant for way too long.
It's like,
they've abused our tolerance, and now it's time to be intolerant.
Well, and here's the thing, and I hate that word tolerance. It's like, what is your definition of tolerance? Letting you do whatever you want, act around, having your mental illness on parade and pushing that crap off onto children? Like, let's for example, the freaking pride parades. It is the most fetishized, sexualized, freaking Sodom and Gomorrah on parade, and you have kids that go to this thing. Like, you have people dressed in BDSM freaking fetish outfits, and it's just like, you want to push this on our kids. You can go climb back in your box. Like, that's the nicest thing I can really say. And just for the audience watching, because I know I'm going to get some rude comments or whatever, I'm not hateful. But here's the thing, because I've talked about this before, is due to my trauma and the side effects that it had, I did have these struggles, and I've talked about this with my dad, because I was considered very strange. I actually had a whole church that I was going gay, and my dad thought I was a feminist for a while because of the way I talked. And just to kind of reiterate a little bit here, I even put out a poem like 1 to 2 years before I came on to help with Save James, and it talked about I could have been, to where I had images where I was a guy. I wanted to be a guy because I didn't want to be seen as the weaker sex, because I didn't want to be a victim of rape. Like, let's just say what it is. So
I've got to wonder how many young girls, kind of fall into that way of thinking, and it just goes a little bit too far.
Guys, too. I can name 3 people, and they're YouTubers, 3 people, women, who have been sexually abused, who are either non-binary, identify that way, or consider themselves trans. I can, two guys who were sexually assaulted. One is in real life. One is, I know, through YouTube, who now identify and transformed into girls. And as I explained, because I just had this conversation with my own father, is that in itself is a poison, which, because, again, a lot of people don't know how to deal with it or cope with it, and a lot of people have different reactions to it. When you have the gender ideology come through, because this is who they target the people who got traumatized either through medical, that's another person I can friggin' name off, who went through cancer treatments. A girl lost all her feminine beauty and now identifies as a guy. So it's not
so they've created a market. They recognized a market, then they put out loss leaders, and now they're creating a market to feed off the vulnerable youth of our society. I mean, it's that evil. It's really that straightforward. Like, they have to be stopped.
Yeah, and here's the thing, too, like, going back to the drag queen story, because that ties into the LGBT stuff and is a sexualized culture. It's men pretty much getting their rocks off trying to be women, and it's such a mockery of womanhood, the feminine physique, and all that. So
it's insulting.
It is. And they had it at one point where one of these drag queen shows, they had kids with Down syndrome performing.
Oh, I saw that. It's criminal.
So, like, you can't tell me this stuff is like, oh, well, love is love. And it's like, I'm so sick of that phrase. Like, I see that rainbow stuff, like, everywhere. Like, you won't catch me dead wearing a damn rainbow. And that it's a biblical symbol. The rainbow is, but because it's been so twisted and so just toxated with all this vulgarity and other stuff, you won't catch me dead everywhere in the damn rainbow.
Yeah, I know. Yep. Yeah, right now on YouTube, it's either Google or YouTube. Their little, they change their moniker, and right now, of course, being Pride Month, they have a weightlifter, and you can't tell whether it's a woman or a man. It's intentionally drawn in such a way that it kind of makes you think that it's one of these male to female athletes. Like, I mean, they put it everywhere. Any place they can shoehorn it in, they put it in. Yeah,
and see that I just, and I'm at the point because, I don't want to lose. I know that sounds really horrible because I've already lost my Twitter. I don't want to lose my social media because of the stuff I'm working on. That's the only reason why I don't want to lose my social media. But at this point, because I'm getting more vocal about this stuff, because I'm sick of seeing it. You have a violation of women's spaces and guys' spaces too. Like, let's not act like it's just the women getting affected by this shit. It's guys. It's girls. It's little boys. You have the Scouts, for example, completely demoralized, completely just messed up because, like, oh, hey, well, boys can't have their own Scouts. Girls have to be shoved everywhere. And they invoke, like, the trans stuff in there, too. So it's just, like, it's both sides.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a total takeover of our society.
It is. You have... Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. This is your interview, hon. You're fine.
Well, I was wondering if, maybe we could, before I forget to mention it, anybody that's listening, so there is a documentary that was released about a week and a half ago. It's called Transmission, just like it sounds, Transmission, and then the subtitle is What's the Rush to Reassign Gender?
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting a lot of traction. The last time I checked, it has over 30,000 views on its main YouTube channel. And I am one of the parents that was participated in the making of that documentary. And if folks want to go and watch it, there's a lot to be. I learned a few things by watching it, because there's endocrinologists that are speaking out about it. There's bioethicists that are speaking out about it. And, the director did try to somewhat make a fair argument by giving a couple people that we just call on the other side, a chance to make their case, which doesn't really, there's no case to be made.
No, none.
But it's definitely worth watching, and I'll just mention the title one more time. It's called Transmission.
I will actually put a link
below this video here.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to say that. I was gonna get a link.
And I'll mention a couple other things, just maybe possibly some breakthroughs. So, because of my participation in that documentary, I've been put in touch with a few, I guess kind of bigger media outlets. The New York Post is writing an article about the documentary, and I got to participate in that and did a fairly long phone interview with the reporter that's putting that together. And they were so serious that they actually had me drive a couple hours and go meet an AP photographer to take some pictures. And so I'm bringing this up because, also I'll mention this too. I'm talking to somebody that works at the Daily Wire about maybe writing a story as well. So I bring all this up to point out that the iron is hot right now, and this is starting to come out, and it's starting to get out into the mainstream press a little more. 60 Minutes, you probably know this, they tried to get ahead of it a little bit,
yes,
and like do a watered down sort of puff piece about, but it's still got some truths out there, because at the end of the day, you can't really talk about this and sugarcoat it enough to completely cover up the appallingness of it. But yes, I do, just to try to be a little bit optimistic here, just on the bigger picture, is that this is starting to get out, and the mainstream media has been ignoring this for so long. People that don't really pay much attention to the latest. We're talking about the old guard. We'll just call them like the boomers. They live in their own little sequestered media worlds a lot. My parents would be an example of that, and it's starting to bleed out into that. So I'm hoping that this is going to start being brought out enough that it's going to start affecting voting. It's going to start affecting who gets voted in to key positions and possibly laws. And maybe the next round, when the states start bringing this up again, like in Texas or in South Dakota or what we've seen so far, there's just going to be a lot more informed citizens and informed voters are going to be able to actually start to pass some real legislation to protect their children. Yeah.
And something else, because I was hoping you would be okay with talking about this. If you want to, and if you just say if you don't want to, but what the heck happened this weekend? Because I think this serves as a perfect example of what some of these freaking crazy yahoos, or actually a lot of them, will go out of their way to do, especially with kids. I don't want to call your son mentally challenged, but kids who are considered mentally vulnerable or socially handicapped in some sort of way.
Yeah, special needs is probably a good term for it.
Yeah.
So you were asking a question? I'm sorry, I think I missed the question.
What happened this weekend? Because me and you talked about this before. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But
yeah. Oh no, it's I have been having my son come up. I live about 5 hours north of where his mother lives, and I've been bringing him home every other long weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. And this winter, it was going fantastic. But then, as I'm starting to get some traction, and his mother is starting to realize that she's not just completely running the show. She is starting to get him riled up and anxiety-ridden, and knows how to push his buttons and manipulate him. And so he has been giving me a lot of trouble on coming up to my house the past couple weekends that I'm supposed to have him. And this is a big challenge because my son, even though he's 11, he is a big kid. He's like 5'8" already, and he's not only very overweight, but he's also very strong. And I can't make him, I guess is what it comes down to. I can't, nothing short of hog tying him and putting him in the trunk of the car or something like that. I can't really make him come with me when he's stubbornly made up his mind that he's not going to. So this is a real problem right now. I mean, it's just kind of a personal, problem, of course, but I'm trying to figure out what to do about it. So right now I've just kind of been regulated to just Zoom calling him a couple times a week. So.
Well, so two things just to remind the audience, is at the age of 11, because this is why Sarah wants sole custody, Miles is at the age to where they would start putting the children on puberty blockers. And I believe it's Tanner stages 1 through 3. He's on Tanner stage 3 at age 11, if I remember that correctly from the stuff that was shared at the Save James trial. So there's that. And then something, because I do feel like this is really important. How does Sarah rile Miles up to where he doesn't want to come with you anymore? Because you said something very specific to me when we spoke a few days ago.
Well, she says stuff to him. It kind of comes back to me. He'll say, you're never going to get custody of me, and you're never going to get full custody. And, so she is scaring him, that, I'm trying to take him away from her, or, I've kind of come up with this analogy a little bit, as I've been further understanding what's going on, is that my son is, he is like in a turbulent ocean of chaos in a way. His emotions are, he's, like I've been saying from the beginning, he has a lot of real problems. Mm-hmm. And his life is like, kind of treading water in a turbulent ocean. And Sarah, has positioned herself as like the one lone rock sticking out of the ocean in which he clings to. And so he is so addicted to her in a way because there's nobody else around. They don't have a family around. None of my family's around. So, so he's kind of addicted to her, and she can use that to rile him up, or she knows how to manipulate him, and so they kind of have this sick interdependent relationship, and she right now she has decided that she's going to make it. She's going to prove something to me, or she's going to teach me a lesson, and she can wreck any of the progress that we were having with bonding. I mean, we were doing great for good solid 6 months, and now I can't get him to get in the car and come with me. So it's a challenge, and I'm going to keep working on it, but as of now, I can't figure out how to quite fix it.
Right. Something, because I'm trying to, you had said something specific to me, and I'll repeat it to where, and I'll ask you this, is Miles fully aware of what Sarah is trying to do with him?
Is he aware?
So, because you, and I might have misheard you, so forgive me if I did, but you had mentioned to me that Miles didn't want to go with you because Sarah had begun to tell him that, oh, well, your dad's not letting you be Miley, or letting you get affirmed as Miley, or letting you go through the process.
Yes, so that is true. Yeah, it's, so right now, he's not going to certain daytime things. I mean, they're not really treatment. They're kind of like YMCA day camps and stuff like that because it's summertime, so he's not in school.
Right.
And he's not going to those because right now everybody's been alerted that there is a contentious case going on, and they kind of feel like they don't want to take sides, and so they've been telling Sarah that, she's not used to hearing no and not used to having to share power. So they're telling her that, Miles can't come until your family court case is settled. And so she has started telling Miles that, well, the reason why you can't go to YMCA, this week, or the reason why, it's because your father is not allowing people to affirm you by your real chosen identity, which is Miley. So yeah, I mean, I wish I could say I've been making some headway in all of this, but the farthest I got in the 6 months, kind of smooth sailing we had, is I got to the point where I could just call him Miles, and he never corrected me when it was just him and I. Sometimes he would get mad and try to use it against me when the people are around, but for the most part, he just didn't make me do it, or hold me to it, I should say. But we have lost a lot of that ground because, Sarah's got too much control over him.
Yeah, and I wasn't really trying to push that button, but I thought it was important because in a way, I mean, it does make things rougher, but in a way, you do have that advantage to where you have other people staying out of it. Unlike with Jeff, you have people going behind his back and trying to side with Anne and do all this weird, shady stuff. But, I mean, so you kind of got the upper hand here because you got too many people going like, nah, we're not getting involved in this. You guys settle your stuff, then you can bring your kids around. But yeah, no, I really wanted that out there because I felt it was important because you do have this happen and it's happening with you. It's happening with, and she's been trying to do this with them for a while. I mean, this is just an example of what they do. I mean, you see this in our schools too, an example of this to where they're doing stuff with the children behind their parents' back, whether that's identity, pronouns, cross-sex hormones. So that's why I was like, this is a real thing. This is really happening. These aren't just wacky parents coming out of the woodworks and going, hey, this is going on. No, this is legit.
It is, yeah. It's parental alienation.
Yes.
Turned on 11.
Yes.
It's the latest, weaponized version of parental alienation, and there's nothing more destructive than going right to what we're talking about here. I mean, convincing your kid, that they're the opposite gender. It's nuts. You can't. There's no middle ground. And another, maybe if you want to, you can link the interview that Jeff and I did a few weeks ago on his new podcast. And
yeah, no, I'll put that below. I have a copy of that on my channel. So.
Oh, great, yeah. How that kind of came about was, Jeff was going to start his podcast anyways, but I contacted him and I said, I was telling him a little bit about the end result of the documentary, which is excellent, but one thing it doesn't get into too much, and I mean, of course, it can't touch everything. They only have an hour to do it, but yeah. But this is a full frontal attack on what's left of parental rights, and yes. That's not being hyperbolic to say. If they get to the point where there is some kind of sacred cow diagnosis that your child can possibly be made or to be put on them, where all of a sudden the parents can't intervene because they're being unsupportive or it's conversion therapy or they're then there's no such thing as parental rights anymore. So this is a weapon that's being deployed. I mean, the family court's going to have to eventually side one way or another on this because there's no middle ground. Either they're going to have to go full corrupted, evil, Marxist, communist, and shut out the parents that don't support this, or they're going to have to come back to some sort of sanity, and they're going to have to get some guidelines and start saying at the end of the day, like I've been saying from the beginning, is that there is a silver bullet in a way to solve this problem, which is basically to have an enshrined kind of almost constitutional level of power put on parents, where there's these inalienable parental rights, and so courts can't override them, hospitals can't override them, schools can't override them. It's just what the parent says is what's best for their child. End of story. And if that was the case, then I don't think it's being idealistic. For example, if that was the case with me, then we wouldn't be having an argument right now. Not you and me, but I mean, just in general, it wouldn't be a case, because I would just say, well, I'm his parent, so this is what I say and this is what goes. So.
And that's how it used to be. And I know family court has been, shall we say, getting worse for quite some time. I mean, even with my own, because I've talked about this on my own channel too, is I was too young when my bio mom and my dad divorced, and that custody stuff, like, I was too young to remember any of that. So, but growing up, I mean, because there was me and my sister, and we're a blended family or whatnot, she was alienated from both our new mom and my dad. And that was a total and utter hell, because she was so angry, and she would lash out on several people. I mean, like, I don't want to go into details because that's a bit too much and inappropriate for my family's business, but it was bad. So I've seen what parent alienation looks like. And but I didn't know how to identify it. I didn't understand any of these things back then. So, but now looking back at it, it's like, holy cow, I can actually talk about this. I can identify this. I can go, yeah, no, I've been through this. And it's an utter nightmare. And that's just normal parent alienation. That's not with this trans stuff or anything else combined. That's just parent alienation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if this isn't, too much off of the subject, I've always felt like when you're young, there's only two people in the world. There's your mom and your dad, and they form your world view. I mean, it's just the way that they're there for your formative years. In a way, they're kind of like a godlike figure.
Yeah.
And if you're being rejected by one or both of your parents, well, in a way, you're kind of being rejected by the world.
Yeah.
And then it creates a personality type, which will carry forth, through people's entire lives. And I mean, I can relate to this. I have my own, burdens that I carry intergenerationally. I think probably everybody does throughout their family, some more than others, and maybe to bring it back to my son's case, is that my attorney kind of gave me this language, it got me to think of it in a different way, was Sarah is rejecting Miles on the most fundamental level. She is rejecting his gender. I mean, she basically is telling him from 3 or 4 years old, I don't accept you as a boy. It's the ultimate rejection. I mean, that's what Anne is doing to James, in a way. I don't accept you as a boy. Now, though, they will contort that into, no, that's what the child wants, and this and that. It's, at the core of this also, it's this reversal of cause and effect. And I've tried to make this case, before with Sarah and with people that listen. Is that they're confusing cause and effect. They're saying that the child is like this, and they're just affirming them, or they're accepting them as they want to be. When in actuality, they are promoting it. Every time my son's mother calls him Miley, and a she and a they, which is all the time, she wants it in everywhere she can. She is basically promoting the delusion.
Yeah. And it's not just the delusion too, like with Jeff Younger, she's using James to hurt Jeff. Because this started right after with them with their divorce, and I think it's the same. That's what parent alienation is. It is, I'm going to use the child we created together as a weapon against you. That's how it was with my family, and that's just the main point of it. And now you have the schools in on it. You have other facilities in on. It's like, okay, you guys aren't doing what we want, so we're going to use your children as weapons against you. And it's freaking disgusting.
You got it. No, you got it. You nailed it. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. I mean, it happens a lot. I can only imagine that, in families that get divorced, a lot of times the mother, especially the boys, they look at that boy and it reminds them of the man that, let's just say, it didn't work out with. Well, and it takes a mature, person to not take it out on the offspring, and there's a lot of people who aren't mature and they don't understand it, or they do it instinctually or something. I mean, there's an element of that going on with Sarah and Miles as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it just, I mean, you don't know what else to say with that, because it's getting to a scary level, and I've said it so many times on my channel, to where I don't want kids because of this, because I'd stick someone in the ground. Both me and my husband, because he's aware of the Save James stuff. I actually got his approval to go down to Texas when I did. And he goes, we're of the same mind. It's like, if people were trying to do this to our kids, nope, you go missing. We won't even play with it. It's like, no, we're just going to go grab shovels and bags. Like, I'm not even kidding. No. Just no.
Yeah, it's a mess. We have to stop this. I mean, we were talking about the slippery slope of, gay marriage a few years ago, and now we're at trans kids. It's like, well, this crazy train has no brakes.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, we haven't seen the end of it yet. I mean, it's gonna get worse. Like you said, it's gonna be pedophilia. It's gonna be open, normalized pedophilia. It's gonna get bad.
And a lot of people, because like I said, I've attracted certain crowds to my channel through other situations, because it's not being hateful. A lot of people do need to wake up, and I'm sorry you guys are still trapped in that illusion, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but no, y'all need to start looking at what's really going on. I've been saying this, and more people are starting to wake up. Yeah, it's time, guys. It really is time.
Well, should we, the folks that have hung in with us this long, should we cut them a break and wrap it up?
Yeah, is there anything else that we need to know about your particular hearing, and are you guys asking for anything in particular? We know Sarah's asking for sole custody and conservatorship. What are you guys asking for?
Well, this time, kind of taking it easy. It's a little bit, I probably maybe should be tactful as to what I say. There's more than this, but I will say, on a kind of a superficial level, I do all the driving to make this happen, and it actually, I mean, I'm not complaining, but it's like every other week I drive about 1,400 miles, to make it happen, because I have to do the trip twice. I have to go down to Minnesota, pick up Miles, bring it back to my house. We hang out here for 4 days, and then I take it back home, and then, of course, I have to come back home. So it's a ton of driving, and gas at over $3 a gallon. It gets, expensive, and it's like, so
wear and tear in your car, too.
I'm sorry?
I said do apologize. And that's wear and tear in your car.
Oh, wear and tear, yes, yeah. That's. I mean, I've been lucky in that my car's been holding together, but it has 304,000 miles on it now. I recommend to anybody, if you're looking for a good used car, buy a Scion XB, the first generation ones. That you can't kill them. They just 35 miles a gallon all day long, and they just run forever. That's been just an absolute saving grace. But to answer your question, is we're going to ask the court for some relief on that, and have Sarah, do half of the driving, maybe come meet me, or, I don't know, subsidize the gas bill, or both, or something. And she's, of course, putting up a fight on that, making the argument that I'm the one that chose to move away, and so, but I don't think that's going to stand, and my attorney thinks it's a pretty reasonable thing to ask for.
Yeah. No, I agree, and it doesn't matter if you chose to move away. Both of you need to make it work, and she's going to go out of her way to be difficult and become like the biggest pain in the ass about it, and So.
That's right.
But yeah, so anything else before we conclude?
No, I think that's it. I just, as always, I think with anybody that cares and is paying attention, and I would just ask that, I don't know, I mean, we have a website still, and I occasionally update it, and I have a YouTube channel, Save Miles YouTube channel, and, we have a GoFundMe if you feel like it, and, just tell people about it. I have a Facebook page too, Save Miles. You can share all this stuff and just kind of, if it can be one of those things that can help, that can wake people up. I do get contacted by people, quite often, that they find one of those social media outlets, and it's just doing its little part to to educate people. Just like you said at the beginning, when you couldn't believe it when you first came across it. It's like I still get in contact with, or people get in contact with me quite often, saying the same thing. They can't believe it, and it's like, yep, it's real.
Yeah, no, it is.
Happening.
And one small recommendation too, because now you've done stuff with Jeff Younger, I would get off of GoFundMe, go to Gifts and Go, because GoFundMe went out of their way to purposefully freeze Jeff's funds when we initially had the GoFundMe for him. So get the hell off that website and get to Gifts and Go. I'm dead serious, because I'm surprised they haven't tried to freeze your stuff yet.
Yeah, they did once when we first started about a little over a year ago. They locked up our account. We had to make a new one. So yeah, you're right, and I am surprised too. I think we're kind of flying under the radar a little bit. I mean, Jeff is a very well known situation, so he gets a lot more flack.
Mm-hmm. Well, do keep us posted if anything else comes up before the hearing. His hearing is July 7th. What time is it for you? July?
That's a good question. I have to go remind myself at the time, but it is on the 7th.
Okay. And then we also have, because you and Save Miles and Save James are kind of attached now, you guys are actually on the heels of each other. Save James is also July 2nd, and that one, Jeff could go to jail. So this is not the case with... Go ahead.
Yeah, it's looking like that. No, it's just like it's a real threat. Like they might take him. That's what it's sounding like. And Jeff, from what he's been saying, is like, well, so be it. If that's what has to be done, then so be it. So.
Yeah, and it's gotten to a point which, thankfully, it isn't the point with you. Thank God. And also something too is there's indication that they're coming after the page, and that they're going to try to subpoena those of us who helped run the page. So they are that desperate right now. So that's going to be fun. Anyway, it was good talking with you, Breton.
Yes, always.
And I really hope, because I know yours, not next weekend, but like in 2 weeks. Let me actually pull up my calendar here. Yours is literally next Wednesday. Not this Wednesday coming up, but next Wednesday. Oh, so yeah. Over a week from now, so... If I hear anything... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I will let you know how it goes, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Well, you have a good one. Thanks for coming on. I know it was a rough... We originally had this planned for a few days ago, but it was kind of a rough weekend for you, understandably so. So thanks for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, no, thanks for understanding. Anytime. Thank you. Just thank you for continuing to be interested and to spread the word and give me a chance to talk to some folks, and just be the best.
No, you have a good one, Breton.
Okay, talk to you later.
Bye. So that was Breton Netz. An interview. We haven't spoken with him for quite a while, just because I have fallen off with some stuff. It has been almost an hour, kind of under a record of an hour and a half. Haha. Anyway, so one thing I do want to say again, I'm not hateful towards anybody, but this stuff, intolerant of, because as Breton said, there is no brakes on this crazy train, and it just continues to get whooshed, and they continue to push, and push, and there's an ultimate goal, and that is what they're headed for. Watch. Anyway, you guys have a good one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.